Recording in progress.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Total German Shepherd podcast. Tonight, we're joined by Mr. Channing Sheets, who is a staple in the German Shepherd Dog Club of America. He is a fellow cohort on the education committee, and he's a lifelong German Shepherd enthusiast. He is licensed to judge the breed in the German Shepherd Dog Club of America. And incidentally, he's also our judge for the Westminster for the GSD. So good evening, sir, and a very warm welcome.
Good evening.
How's it going? How's life been in the breed recently?
I'm hanging in there. It's nice to have had a little bit of downtime.
That's great. That's great. So let's start at the beginning. Do you remember the first time a German Shepherd captured your imagination and what drew you to the breed?
So I grew up in southern Indiana, Evansville, Indiana specifically. And in the public school system there, we always used to have the local police department do demonstrations, canine demonstrations. So I'd seen them work quite a few times. And so I was fascinated by them because my father, avid outdoorsman, right? If it moved, we hunted it. So we did rabbits, we did squirrels, we hunted deers. That was his thing, but I went with him because he drug me along. We did waterfowl, and I would train the Labradors and some of his friends' dogs for hunting season in the fall and the summers when I had it off. So I'd been around a lot of sporting dogs. We had treeing walkers, being Kentucky. That's a thing there, Virginia. We had foxhounds, we had beagles, and I just remember that we would go hunting with the beagles, and they would chase rabbits or whatever, and you try to call them off because it's time to leave for the day, and you couldn't. And he literally would leave the dog there, drive back the next day, and the dog would be sitting by the side of the road, jump in the truck and go home. And I said, I never in my life want to have a dog that's not biddable, that cannot do a recall.
Right.
And so after seeing these images of the German Shepherd work, they can do a recall.
Yes.
And they're so into their person that there's no way in hell they're going to run away from them.
Some would say.
So that kind of cemented it.
That's wonderful. So were you always involved in purebred dogs outside of the hunting dogs, or did your journey or into the fancy come from a different direction outside of the hunting dogs?
So always purebred dogs. The hunting dogs, my first show dog, it's funny that you should say this. So my first German Shepherd was 1986 and was pretty much a pet and obedience dog. And then my first show dog was actually a Kazan. So I got a pet Kazan from a lady that had gotten her dog from a show breeder. Now, the lady who bred it used to be a German Shepherd person. And so there's a couple in German Shepherds now. She was married before to that husband. And so when they got divorced, she got out of the breed and then she went to Kazan. So I got a Kazan from her sister. It was a pet. I tried to turn into a show dog. And then
we've all been there.
Everybody's got to start somewhere. And then I end up getting back into German Shepherds because that's kind of where my heart was, and I'd already had
sir. That's wonderful. So who were some of your early mentors in the breed, handlers, breeders, or judges who shaped your understanding of what a correct German Shepherd should be? Of course, it's ideas with each and every individual. Everybody has their own interpretation of the breed standard. But who were your early mentors and your biggest influences when you started?
So I was fortunate. So in Evansville, Indiana, we used to have, which no longer exists, the German Shepherd Dog Club of Southern Indiana. And I was a member. And out of that club came a lot of big names. Nancy Schneider, Bart and Cindy Bartley, the Grangers, they've had Grand Victors. So like, even though we were a small club, there were some big time dog people there. And literally the Evansville Kennel Club used to be, well, they're still, I think, one of the largest clusters in the country. But at that time was the largest dog show, all breed show in the country was the Louisville Kennel Club. We'd have like 5,500 plus dogs indoors.
Wow.
So we would get entries over 100, 120. Some of the other large breeds, they'd have almost 200, like Goldens or something. So that's what I grew up in. Times have changed, but I would say probably husbandry, Nancy Schneider, because I went to her kennel a few times and helped her do dogs. And so I learned more about taking care of dogs and managing dogs. Bart and Cindy used to come to confirmation classes. And so they probably taught me more of the handling with Nancy. Bart actually picked up my first show German Shepherd for me, which I got from Karen Heineck when we used to co-own and breed dogs together. So those people.
So a big influence of a conglomerate of people were responsible for your today's success.
Yeah. I just
That's
happened to grow
wonderful.
up in the right place.
That's awesome. So was there a particular dog, yours or somebody else's at the time, that became a turning point in your life with the German Shepherd breed?
Oh God. See, this is a tricky question because you can't answer it for anything that has lived recently or has been bred recently because that's always frowned upon.
Right,
So
right. Yeah, but
I will
pretend nobody's listening.
I will say this. I'm gonna keep current dogs off limits. I will
Sounds
say
good.
when I started, so
Yes,
I got my first German Shepherd in 1986, and when I really started in conformation, like 88, 89, that 87 through 1990 national video, I probably watched them until they wore out. So there were
right.
some dogs that really caught my eye at that time. That time there was a dog called Houston of Wildwood who was competing against this dog Brentarles Gunner, and they literally would have side gate slugouts at the national, and I
Oh,
would be
wow.
mesmerized by watching it. So I would say those two. Um, I have a tendency to compartmentalize. So there are dogs who are great show dogs, and then there are
Sure.
dogs that want to be great producers. So there were
Yes,
some dogs that, yeah, you could fault them here or there, but what they produced and they contributed and what they carried forward was their
yes,
value. So
yes.
like Dave Rinke's Bow Dog. So he produced a lot of males who went on to be quite spectacular producer. He himself went select at the national. He was a good dog, but he produced dogs that were even better than himself. And
Sure.
so to me, if you are a great conformation dog, it's harder with bitches because if you're campaigning a bitch, you really can't allow her to have a litter because some of them can recover
Sure.
from that and some can't.
Yes,
So a
absolutely.
lot of bitches that, and the longer you wait, the more reproductive problems you're gonna have. So if they're
Yes,
specialing a bitch two, three, four, five, and then they decide to take her out at six and breed her, she may or may not conceive. She may have small
sure.
litters. You may get
Yeah.
into problems. So
Ovarian cysts, whatnot.
exactly.
Yeah.
So bitches are a little bit harder. So I give them a pass, but there's nothing like a really good dog that turns out to be a
Yes.
great producer.
Sure.
And so I'm trying to think back. Um, there were some other, probably Mystique and Crooked. They were litter sisters, and obviously Mystique holds the record for best in show. She's the top winning show dog of any breed of all time. I mean,
Wow.
she was just a great uh, PR dog for the breed. So
Sure.
beautiful type, beautiful proportions, didn't have to be extreme or overdone in any way. Everything worked as it should. Um, Sound mind, just a great representation. There was a bitch in the early, I want to say 2000s that Mets bred in Minnesota, Voodoo Lily. She's a little bit on the larger side, but probably one of the best side gators I've ever seen. Big, big, big shoulder. And return to upper arm is a problem.
Yes.
Layback is a
Sure.
problem. And
Sure.
for a time, we like in the early 90s and late 80s, we had these really extreme. So they had two more rear than they needed, and high withered dogs, which we had really straight shoulders, so they weren't really balanced. So that was nice to see in that era sort of go back to a more balanced dog. Trying to think who else. Early 80s, uh, Blythe Spirit, Sable Bitch. I'm kind of partial to Sables um, for myself.
Right.
Not when I'm judging, but like
Right.
if I could have a kennel full of beautiful sable bitches, I'd be dead, die and go to heaven.
Especially the beautiful pigmented ones, the darkly pigmented ones.
Dark or black and red.
Yeah.
Yes, red. There's nothing like it. There was another sable bitch like an 88 national. I want to say See You Later, Sierra. She went Grand Victrix. Yeah, probably those dogs.
So I'd like to kind of interject here and talk a little bit about post-World War America and Germany. Talk about a little bit of type differentiation because you follow the dogs of the American Persuasion or the American Fancy as opposed to the quote-unquote German dogs.
Hmm.
And there is a slight type difference, we can say, in the American dogs and the German dogs over the back line, the lay of the front, and the expressions. The heads a little bit are a little bit different shaped. And when we're looking at the side gate, there's nothing more exhilarating than watching a GSDCA national with a dog just flying in the ring at the end of a 10-foot leash. Just, a stupendous sight to see. But you mentioned a little bit about the shoulders, the lay of the shoulder, the upper arm, the reach back, and all that stuff. I would like you to go and explain that in deeper detail for the audience in general. Explain how important is the shoulder and the forehand assembly is to the German Shepherd dog, and the neck carriage is to the German Shepherd dog over over anything else as far as the anatomy goes in a moving dog.
In a moving dog, head carriage is important. Obviously, so I study other breeds as well. So
Yes,
the
sir.
more you study
You
other
are an
breeds,
all breed judge, just so people know.
the more you learn about your own. And so,
Yes.
like in a poodle, say a standard poodle, for example, poodle carriage is everything. 12 and
Yes, sir.
12 o'clock tail set, 12 o'clock head carriage. You would never
Yes.
want that in a herding dog.
Right,
And
right, exactly.
some herding breed standards actually, the minimum or maximum they will allow is 45 degrees, right? So they
Right.
don't want to see that head carriage that much more higher than the withers. And then there are other
Absolutely.
breeds like the border collie, which is allowed to carry the head carriage below the withers, are
Right.
at the level of the withers.
Yes.
So for us, it's like at or above, that 40 kind of 45 degrees, but we're
Right.
going forward, and the head
Flat to the
carriage
ground.
and the opening of the shoulder allow you to lay in and reach. If you're
Yes.
upright like this, you're going to
Yep.
come up, but you're not going to go forward.
Yep. Absolutely. And the ass goes down and the spine
Mhm.
gets contorted. It was I'll interject some personal experience here. In 2015, we had this female that won the German championship, the German show. And this was such a jarring sight because she had this upright neck, this upright head, and the back was so arched. And there's photos of this everywhere. So, it's not like some hidden knowledge. And there's, cartoon skeletons drawn all over her, showing her distorted spine and all that stuff. And it was jarring for me to see in person that this is where we're going in the breed, in the motherland of the breed. And
Wow.
it was not pretty. It was not pretty at all. But hey, it's his lucky day, whatever. The owner went to win the VA1 female in the German Sieger show. Good for them. But this is, I think, definitely, especially not this year, but the previous year. Mr. Christian Lang, who's been on the podcast a handful of times, he's 6 or 7 times. He was the judge of the working females, and he made a concerted effort to make sure the standard, as you described, the neck carriage as you described, and the shoulder as you described, is transcribed into the dogs that are actually winning. And you could see the difference in the class from 15 to 20, 24, how different the dogs had looked in the top group, which was really nice to see for a lifelong enthusiast and, a little bit of a dog nerd as myself, that we're actually, considering the written standard and putting it in our judging practices. So again, going back into the history of the
Oh,
breed
you
as a
froze.
herding dog and going back to American fancy. Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Oh, great. I said, so
Yes.
going back to the American fancy and getting the initial shot of adrenaline into the American zeitgeist with Rin Tin Tin. That's where I fell in love with the breed as well. My first introduction to the breed was Rin Tin Tin. From there to where we are today, how would you chronologically describe the development of the German Shepherd in the United States and North America at large?
So after the World Wars, and there even some of the people that were in our parrot club, like Joe Bahari and Ernie Loeb, who came from Europe and had European
Yes,
dogs, and one of them escaped the Nazi regime, and he would tell
that's
stories about it.
amazing.
So they came up from the origins of the breed, and then they came and they
Sure.
had some American dogs, and they were great importers of dogs. So in the 50s and
Right.
60s, there was a lot of importing dogs from across the pond, integrating them into an American lines. And then
Sure.
sometime in the 70s, that really dwindled. 70s and
Okay.
80s and 90s, that kind of went away. And now, as of probably like 15 years ago, you're seeing some people import some dogs that are really being used in American
Sure.
lines. So
Sure.
we're sort of going back because there are things that we've lost, like heads and bone and substance and pigment in some lines that you really can easily get from some of those European lines. So there are
Sure.
some advantages. The tricky part is that it's hard breeding to pedigrees that you don't know.
Right.
So
Absolutely. 'Cause now you're mentioning dogs, and I am completely clueless as to what dogs those were. So I kind of feel what you're saying.
it's a steep learning curve. So I oftentimes find myself, one of my breeding partners lives in Colorado and they have a lot of European dogs and stuff. And
Sure.
I'll just email her or call her and be like, I need a translation on this pedigree. And I kind of do
Right.
the same thing for a lot of people on American pedigrees because when I
Yes.
started, I wasn't a breeder. I
Yes.
never really had an intent to be a breeder. I bought dogs. And I bought a number
Right.
of dogs, and I had a number of bad experiences, and I had dogs with
Sure.
various health problems and temperament problems. So I learned what you can get, the negative aspects of what you can get. I was like, you
Right.
know what? I can do better myself and at least
Yeah.
produce a dog that reasonably sound. I mean, not that
Right.
you can't breed two golden retrievers together and still get one that's a little iffy. It
Yeah.
happens, but
Yeah.
at least breed in the right direction to get a dog that's reasonably sound and with good structure and reasonable type. So I get into this debate about breed type sometimes with all breed judges all the time because
Sure.
it depends on where you come from, right? Some people
Yes.
are like pretty, 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 pretty. And I'm like, pretty is never my starting point. The sheep do
Right.
not care if you're pretty. The bad guy that you're biting does not care if you're pretty. The
Yes.
functional attributes are most important.
Yes.
And I tend to do this a little bit more than most American people because we love pretty. Don't get me wrong. I love a beautiful dog that can move with all
Sure.
this.
Don't we all?
But the functional attributes for me come first because when I
Yes.
started, one of my mentors, they were an older couple and they had two brothers. They were probably like 2 or 3 years old that had been started. They did all the basic obedience. They were working them in bite work, and I was training them in tracking.
Hmm.
So I took like those elements of those functional characteristics to be able to work. And so now I'm like, I can't do a dog with big gaping holes in its mouth. You know what I mean?
Right. 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 For sure.
You got to be able to grip a
Absolutely.
bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And the
I can't.
integrity of the jaw is compromised.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
can't do a dog that can't travel from point A to point B easily with good
Right.
transmission. I just can't do it. I don't care
Yeah.
how beautiful you are on the line. If your
Right.
parts don't work, that dog don't hunt. It
Sure.
doesn't get
That's
fed.
true. That's absolutely. Also, I'd like to ask you another question in a slightly different direction. You know, everybody has their opinion on the American dogs, but I would like for you to tell me, where do you feel the American dogs have a significant advantage over the German dogs, and where could they help the German lines a little bit as far as physical attributes go?
Well, for a long time, there were a lot of European dogs that had good underdrive, and some of
Sure.
them had decent follow through in croups.
Could you
Where
please
they
explain to the lay people what that means?
so pelvic angle, right?
Yes.
It'd be like 30 degrees. And
Sure.
when I talk to all breed people and I mentor them, what they don't understand is overreach dogs. So
Right.
Brittany's, Brackies, and German Shepherds overreach underneath, so they get the
Yes.
maximum forward thrust.
Absolutely.
When
Absolutely.
you do
Especially in
that,
fast movement.
that pelvic angle shifts down,
Yeah.
and so in order to get under yourself, and that top line drops a little bit, and that's why all that happens. What people don't seem to understand is that you can't be steep already because then you have
Right.
nowhere to go on the
Absolutely.
downshift.
Then you're planning grading.
Exactly. And then you have no
Yes.
follow through. And so that rear is about 70% of the forward thrust. So it's really,
Yes.
really important. And the
Yes.
front has to be able to
That's
take
the
it,
engine. Yeah.
but has to balance that rear.
Yes. Absolutely. So having dogs, like so we'll see in a lot of German dogs, we'll see really powerful rear that they're moving with a lot of power from behind, and then they actually have way too much power for the front to handle. And then as a
Yes.
result, you'll see the spines getting curved, and people are like, oh, these are roachback dogs. Not really when they're moving around in real life. When they're tugging on the lead so much because they have a different discipline on the lead, they're pulling their backs in such a steep curve that they can't really reach and they can't really show you the movement. So again, reiterating the question, where do you think the American dogs have a significant advantage?
Now, we fault our dogs heavily on fronts because a lot of us are sensitive about four assemblies, but I
Sure.
think our four assemblies are better. There's a lot
Yes.
of lifting and bicycling just for that reason. Their rear travels really pretty well, but the
Yes.
fronts can't handle that thrust from the rear.
Right. There's a big trend, I think, right now in the German dogs, especially of having reverse proportions. So they're a
Hmm.
lot deeper than they're taller. And to have a sound working dog, which has to technically move all day long to, as a moving fence to shepherd sheep from here to there, or just, stop the sheep from going out of the pasture. So it has to go back and forth, back and forth. And I got to spend some time with Mrs. Deegan a little while back watching her dogs work. And it's
Hmm.
tremendous watching these dogs work and how much effort the dog has to put in to make sure the sheep are contained and gate the whole time. Just, watching the sheep, making sure the heads stay in place. Uh, it's really interesting when you have a dog that can't actually doesn't have the right proportions in the forehand to be able to sustain that. There's no possible way to run the way the dogs need to run and have those inverse proportions.
Then the other thing that comes with that, when we talk about agility, so dogs that have to 9/11, have to go over the
Yes.
rubber pile and found people,
Yes.
or
Yes.
dogs that have to in the military they have to jump an A-frame,
Yes.
or dogs that are tending all day, which are basically
Yes.
marathon runners.
Yes.
You do
100%.
not want some cumbersome, overdone tree
Yep.
trunk leg,
Yep.
heavy-headed, deep, clunky thing. That is going to be a disaster, and they're
Yep.
not going to be able to endure it for the long haul.
Oh,
And the
absolutely.
agility will be limited.
Yep. And they're going to be fragile dogs that are prone to injuries. And they
Mhm.
will definitely not be long-lasting dogs as we want the longevity in our dogs in their senior years as well. Because you'll notice there's not a lot of old dogs around after successful show careers, especially on the European side. They just disappear because they're all gone. Well, at least most of them. So many of us know that living with the breed teaches us things no seminar can. And these are all life experiences that you've had. What lessons have your own dogs taught you and the dogs that you've seen over the years that stand out the most to you?
Um, when I started, the emphasis was side gate, side gate, side gate, shoulder, shoulder, shoulder. And what I learned was in order to have a functional tendon gait, you don't have to have an exceptional extreme shoulder. You have to
Sure.
have enough as long as it's reasonably balanced with the rear. The most important
Right.
thing is the forward propulsion to get you
Right.
to travel. You can't
Right.
pull yourself with the front, with the exception, which is one of the difference with the European dogs too, because they put those collars low and they dig into it,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
almost
Yep.
like almost like a husky would in harness. So
Yes.
dogs that in harness or they're doing weight pulling, they're digging, driving with that rear to pull forward, but they're
Yes.
also digging with the front.
Right.
Our dogs do a lot less digging with the front. The
Yes.
propulsion is coming from the rear. The front just
Yes.
is along for the ride, pretty much.
Yes. It's like a rudder.
Yeah.
And so, what lessons would you attribute to not just the forehand of the dog, but across the board, as far as temperament goes, as far as husbandry goes? What are the lessons that stick out to you?
Oh, natural surfaces are always good, even though some people keep their dogs on concrete. I realize that because especially with puppies, due to joints developing and things like that, I kind of frown on that.
Yeah,
Are we talking about for health? Are we talking about conditioning?
everything, everything, everything.
Conditioning for show, people need to keep in mind. First off, they need to produce it in the whelping box, backs,
Yes,
strong backs. But they also need to be aware the core of any athlete is what holds everything together. So, like
absolutely.
recently, like in October, I tweaked my back, right, lifting something.
Yes,
And you don't realize how pulling an ab muscle or tweaking your back or sleeping wrong, it affects everything you do. It hurts to breathe, it hurts to sit down, it hurts to walk, it hurts to run. So that core is really important. You don't want long, you don't want weak because it's prone to injury, and you don't want so constricting that it causes other problems. Like, for example, if say for example you break a leg and now your muscles contract and you're in contraction and
sure.
it's a compound fracture,
Yeah, of a
getting that
femur.
apart
Yeah,
and while you're out of alignment, that
yeah,
causes a whole host of problems. So you don't want to be
absolutely.
all humped up and bunched up either.
It could be
So
fatal.
it could be fatal. Yes.
Yeah,
So the core is really important.
yeah. It
And
was
selecting dogs with a good core.
yeah, so it was just a funny story. It's somebody I overheard somebody saying, ever since I've turned 40, my back goes out a lot and I don't.
Pretty much.
So how do you transition from an exhibitor to a breeder into judging? And was there a moment that you felt that I want to stand in the center of the ring? Like you mentioned earlier, it's like, yeah, I think I can maybe do a little bit better than what these people are doing. But how did that transition into the judging?
So to be honest, I never really thought about it for a long time. I just wanted to show and be like all those famous handlers that I saw on video, and,
All
like every young
celebrities.
person. Yeah,
Yeah.
and win all the ribbons. And then, you get tired of running, you get tired of all the travel, you get tired of all the money, and you get tired of buying dogs and them not turning out or not getting the replacements from breeders or whatever, honoring your agreements. So you're like, I'm going to breed my own. So I did.
Right.
And then you get to a point where one of the things that we have always had is a lot of specialties in the United States. And there were
Right.
dogs that were only shown at specialties that would never be shown in all breed. That has since
Yes.
changed. I
Right.
remember, entries of 160 plus, and they have to have two judges at the local specialty. And they would go there, and you didn't even show up to show in the open bitch class till 5 p.m., right? It started at 8 a.m. Now
Wow.
you're lucky to have 20 or 25.
Right.
And so things have changed. Clubs can't afford to fly in judges at whatever expense. And
Right.
so there's a lot of merging with all breed clusters just to sustain because it's an older
Right.
workforce. We don't have a lot of new people. That's one of
Right.
the things that I think has worked reasonably well in the working dog side of the house. I see a lot of young people like, I want to say it was like '07 or '08, maybe, one of the St. Louis Nationals. And 2023, maybe, we were in Florida National, and they had the working dog Seeger show on the grounds as well. And I went over there, and there were a lot of really young handlers. That's not something
Yes.
that we have. We're
Right.
a much older demographic. So it's like as people age out and physically can't do it anymore,
Right.
get on their knees and whelping puppies and that kind of thing,
Oh yeah.
or they pass away, there's this void. There's a void of people to operate a parent club. There's a void of people to be club members, operate show events, whether it be performance or confirmation. There's a void of breeders. So this is why we see the downward slope that we're kind of trajectory that we're kind of on, and it's sad.
Why do you think that is that our fans, our dog fancy is not able to attract younger people?
Too many distractions. So when I was a kid, I don't know how you're younger than I am. So it might have been that case when you were a kid too. But when I was a kid, there was no internet. There were no cell phones. Well, I mean, in the '80s, there were cell phones. They were
Right.
these big hunking things that only
These
rich
bricks.
people had. So
Yes.
there weren't even pagers. So there weren't all the
Michael Douglas on the beach.
it didn't cost as much to survive.
Right.
It didn't cost as much to do a breeding. There were airlines that would take bitches. You could fly a bitch across country for a breeding
Yep.
for $50. Now you can't
Yeah.
find an airline to even
No.
take them. And when they
No.
do, it costs a small fortune. So,
It does.
I
It does.
mean,
Been there, done that.
just to be able to afford to do it, you can do
And
less because your dollars don't go as far.
right. Oh, absolutely. And where do you think the club has a responsibility, or the club is at fault, or people of the bygone era are at fault for not being able to imbibe these young people in? Or is there any fault of the club at all?
I think we should put more efforts into it, but I think our approach has to be different. So
Okay.
young people are so consumed by instant media. And if you can tap into their social nexus or networks where the things where they get their information from, that's
Sure.
how you win them over.
Right.
You can't, it's gone are the days you just post something on a website or something on the AKC site, or you send out some premium list or however you do things to get information out. No one pays attention to that. You have to
Right.
go to the source, use the sources and go to where the people are.
Right. And what else could the club do to adapt to attracting these young folk, these elusive young folk that we speak of?
So there's a couple things.
Yes.
Merge the events with performance events because there's like scent work and things that are easy to put on, make a
Yes.
lot of money to help
Yes.
sustain a lot of these clubs. And it's something that someone can do with their dog that easily train for.
Yes.
And it's fun for people.
Yeah.
Or have like fun events or fun days. I had a friend that suggested this a long time ago. She's like, it would be interesting if like at regular dog shows, say at like lunchtime, we just took the lunch break and we had like a little like exhibition ribbon for pet people, and they could come and they just got a ribbon. They could go in the ring and they have a mentor, and you just show them how to show their dog, and they run around and be
Yeah.
proud for a second and talk about how beautiful their dog is.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Whether their dog was beautiful or not, they felt like they were a part of something, and they felt like somebody was investing time in them. They're going to come
Right.
back.
Right. Right. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about the road to the Westminster. It's the Super Bowl of the dogs in the United States. And it is in my opinion, I think it's bigger than the Crufts. And it's the single biggest all breed dog event in the entire world. That's just, as far as the coverage goes. So how did you first hear? Yes. So how did you first hear that you'd be, how did you first hear of the Westminster? have you, the aspirations to show at the Westminster, win at the Westminster, and then coming all the way down the road, and that you'd be actually judging the German Shepherd dog, your own breed, at the Westminster?
So I show in all breeds and specialty shows, but I never thought I don't really special in all breeds.
Sure.
Because in order to do that and get one of those dogs that's like ranked in your group or ranked in the top dogs in the country, you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Yes.
First, you got to
Yes.
be able to afford to do it. And
Yes.
literally, it's a life. Like now that you got these clusters that are 4 to 5, sometimes 6 days in a row, literally
Yes.
some of these dogs are on a plane every week.
Yes.
And that's just a bit much. That's a bit
Yep.
much for the dog. That's a bit much for the people. I realize they're all breed handlers, professional handlers. That's their life, so they just go from showgrounds to showgrounds, and they're
Right.
okay with it because that's their livelihood.
Right.
I never wanted to do that ever,
Right.
ever,
Right.
ever. So I was never in that. I mean, we exhibited when Royal Canin, what used to be Yukonu, but is now
Yes.
Royal Canin National Championship was in Long Beach. We would go there because it's 6 hours and it was easy to get to.
Right.
Now, once
Oh, I
again,
remember. I remember Long Beach. Yeah.
there are very few airlines that take dogs.
Yes.
And when you're going to a 5,000 plus dog show, you're competing with everybody else for a spot on that plane. So odds are
Yes.
you can't fly. If
Yes.
you can, it costs you an arm and a leg. And
Yes.
then who can afford to take, however, maybe like, depending on how slow you drive, 4 days off, 5 days off work to drive one way, get there
Yes.
for a week, and then have to spend 5 days back.
Yes.
It's just a lot.
The
Most of
geographic considerations of America are immense. Yes.
And most of the big shows are on the East Coast. So
Yes.
I never really participated in them that much just because logistically it's a challenge.
Right. Plus,
And
you have a
so
full-time job.
exactly, I have a full-time job. I have my own dogs. There's all these responsibilities that you just
Right.
can't take up and go away. So the people who live out here that do it send their dog off with a handler. But once again, you
Yes.
got to spend that $350,000 a year at least.
Yes.
So I didn't think I'd ever get picked to judge the dog show because in that world, I'm not
Right.
some big name, right?
Right. Sure.
One of the things I like doing is just sitting down with people and talking dogs, kind of like we're doing, whether it be
Right.
ringside or at a performance sport or herding or whatever. I think that's great. I can talk
It's been a long
structure.
time in the making, this one.
Yeah. So I like mentoring judges on our breed. That's one of
Yes, sir.
one of the things I think I can give back to the parent club. I think Sherry
Yes,
does
sir.
an excellent job. I think Vicky
Yes,
does
she
an
does.
excellent job.
Absolutely.
And so I make myself available usually when we have local specialties or what have you, or some of these big shows where they have workshops that I go to learn about different breeds and other judges are present for other herding breeds. I
Yes.
sit down with them and I mentor them.
Yes.
And I think through that process and being on panels with a lot of different people come to know sort of my thought process, and
Yes.
I earn respect that way. But I'll be honest, when your name is thrown in a hat in a show like this and it being the 150th, and literally it's like one of the suggestions I think that was made to Donald Sturz was that some of the group judge be people who are specialists in that group. One of the things that Royal Canin doesn't do, they don't do that. So like, and not that the judges are excellent all around judges,
Sure.
but
Sure.
when you have one of the most prestigious shows in the world, you need to have the subject matter experts judging that group.
Absolutely.
I want
Absolutely.
there to be no question that
Yes.
when some of the big names like the judging me, Tom Coyne, who's one of the most respected herding judges probably worldwide,
Sure.
and I've been looking up to that man for years. I've been fortunate I met him last May. I was on a judging panel with him. He comes from Shelties, but he is just great for every
Yes.
herding breed. He just gets
Yes.
it, right? That's the kind of person I want to show to if I'm an exhibitor, right?
Yes.
Somebody who's respected in my group. And
Yes.
I feel like the panel for Westminster 150, all those judges in all those groups are just icons.
That's
And
fantastic.
I was floored. I'm like, why me? But somebody was watching, I guess.
That's
So I'll
wonderful.
take it.
That's really wonderful. And that's a very high compliment as well. And I for one would not want to be judged by a Chihuahua breeder in a German Shepherd. So it makes perfect sense that they actually had the wherewithal to think about this and actually do the right thing. So kudos to them and picking a great one like yourself. So I also want to ask you what your initial reaction was: excitement, nerves, sense of responsibility. Could you go into that a little bit?
Excitement. So they sent out these official letters. They sent a
Yeah,
lot of written, printed correspondence, which
sure.
very old school and classy, and I
I
kind of
love
love
it. I
that.
love it. Yeah.
So I got this letter, and the
Is it
Westminster
on your wall?
no, the Westminster logo is on there, and I was like, I know what that is. Why are they sending
Yeah.
me a letter, right? And
I
and then
love it.
it's with the contract and the breeze they want you to judge, and then you sign it and return it. And I was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was the
That's great.
exciting part. And
Yes.
then comes the sense of responsibility.
Right.
So
The dread
literally,
sets in.
I've been mentoring for like probably 6 months now. Like I have a Teams meeting scheduled Monday with one of my Aussie members to go through the Aussie standard. Because when I walk into that room, I'm like, I already judge a lot of these breeds, but treat me
Yeah.
like I know nothing and let's
Sure.
walk through it again. I need to be
Yes.
sure when I walk into that room, I know how this standard is to be interpreted. And I've pretty much
Absolutely.
done that for all 6 breeds that I'm supposed to judge there.
Right. Oh, that's wonderful. And in your view, what makes the Westminster different from other prestigious events? Is it the stage? Is it the pressure? Is it the legacy? Let's say, how is it different from the Crufts? Because
Crust
those are
is
the two.
huge.
Yeah.
It's
No, I'm
it,
just
it's
saying for the American context, we don't think beyond the Westminster, especially when we're going around the garden. We've got movies made after it for crying out loud. So there's nothing quite like it in the cultural zeitgeist like the Westminster when we think of dog shows. The news coverage, we all remember, Ken all over the news interviews and all that stuff with the dogs when he won the Best in Show and with Rumor, and it's just the media barrage that hits you when you're at the event and when you win an event like this, and what it does for your breed is something spectacular. So I think it's there to attract a lot more people into the breed, just to create awareness and all that stuff. How do you think it's so impactful? I don't think Crufts has that kind of weight as far as media goes
well, the
that the
difference
Westminster
is
does.
I think the difference is the Westminster Kennel Club.
Right.
Like everything they do, whether it be the show chair or the board of directors or the people responsible for advertising, the people responsible for venues, they have a committee for everything, and everything is nailed down to a T like a science, whether it be the people
Wow.
that are transporting the judges or the people who are making special events for exhibitors or visitors or fans. Like everything is done really well. I've never seen a show that is run. I mean, they do it every year, so they
Sure.
have it
Yeah.
figured out, but it's a well-oiled machine. And even the communications people, like they will reach out to you and they want bios from you. And then they reach out to all the local news stations and networks where you live so they can promote. And then
Oh, that's fabulous.
I've watched, Westminster on TV since the late 80s. And
Yeah.
literally, like, you'll see on YouTube little video clips, and they're like, oh, this is on the road to Westminster with this show. And
Yes.
this is how people prepare. Like,
Personalized stories.
they give you all
They
these
get you invested in it.
perspectives. Yeah,
Yeah.
they get you invested in it. The
Yeah.
buildup is tremendous.
Yeah. And so having shouldering the responsibility of judging the breed at the Westminster, what are your feelings? How are you feeling about that?
I feel like I have no idea who's going to show up. So here's the thing. Sherry is our friend.
Yes.
She's on the judge exec
Yes.
committee with her. She
Yes.
normally has specials that she can show. She's doing
Yes.
her group. Nothing of hers can show. So like the
Yes.
people who normally bring the really nice dogs to the Aubrey and exhibit, they can't exhibit.
Right.
So unlike usual, they usually have like 10 to 12 entries. There are 20 German Shepherds in it. So that's
Yes.
unusual. So
Yes.
I'm flattered that people in my breed are going to show up. I just hope there's some really nice dogs that
Yes.
people from outside of our breed can see that are great representations of German
Yes.
Shepherds. And that's what will bring me joy more than anything.
And it's also an invitation only, so nobody can just show up there.
Well, so here's the thing.
Yes.
So it's champions only. That's one of the other advantages of the show. So in theory, they had to finish. It's supposed to be better
Right.
quality. There's a
Right.
pre-entry for the top 5 ranked dogs. Now, in
Right.
our breed, the top 5 ranked dogs don't always equate to the best dog, like at the
Sure.
national, right? So
Sure. It depends
dogs
on
that may
who's
win the
dog.
national may
Yeah.
not. I think the dogs that win the nationals, they get an automatic invite too. But like,
Right.
say you're talking the top 5 dogs, maybe those are the top 5 selects.
Yes.
It's the one that's the breed winner maybe that gets an invite, but the rest of them
Right.
don't. And the
Right.
others are the top 5 in all breed rankings. So it's a little
Right.
bit different. It skews a
Got
little
it.
bit. But it's as soon as entries open, people rush to get their entries in, and not everybody gets accepted. So, I
Right.
mean, sometimes it closes in minutes because it used to be a 2,500 dog limit. And now that they've moved to the Javits Center and they have more space, they increased the entries by like 500 or so. So it's 3,000 dogs this time.
Sure. That's incredible. I had no idea that there was like a cutoff of entries that you can't have more than those entries. That's yeah. So judging the German Shepherd is no easy task, as we all know. There are, in my opinion, it's the hardest breed to judge for whatever reason that might be. There are strong opinions, different schools of thought, working lines, show lines, American versus German type, as we discussed. How do you navigate that landscape while staying true to your vision?
Ask me that question again.
Okay. So judging the breed is no easy task because we have so much variation and we've got this massive popularity across different streams of folk that find different things that they fancy. Whether it's the working type, whether it's the American show lines, whether it's the German show lines that we've got the three major divisions into. So we've got strong opinions in each camp. Every camp has very strong opinions that they're willing to fight you for with a blunt kitchen knife. And we've got different schools of thought. People ready to scoop your eyes out with spoons when you say the wrong thing on the internet. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, how do you navigate that landscape in the breed while staying true to your vision of what you feel German Shepherd should be?
It goes back to what I said. It doesn't matter what country it comes from. The functional attributes have to be there first, right? So
Yes.
they got to be able to tend the stock. They got to be able to bite a bad guy. If they got to have reasonable character so they can function and work. And
Right.
irrespective of where you come from or what your breeding is, that's
Yes.
your foundation. So
Yes.
that gets you selecting the better ones towards the front. And then once you get up there, then you start to select by nuances. But the
Yes.
functional attributes are the ones that come to the front.
Right. So when you're standing in the ring, what matters the most to you? Of course, we're talking about the functional attributes. So it's movement, type, presence, temperament, and anatomical balance. So where do these things on a spectrum or on a gradation figure for you?
So temperament is first. If you can't touch it, it's out.
Right.
It's just the end of the line. I'm not looking at you. Maybe you're just having a bad day, but today's
Sure.
not your day.
Gotcha.
Then when I tell people, I say movement because it's how the parts work. Sometimes you will see a dog. Years ago, and shall remain nameless, there was a dog that won at our national who was square and oversized with big hocks and a short, stuffy neck. But for whatever reason, when that dog went, all the parts worked. He traveled close to the ground, took a ginormous stride, and was fluid with a good back. If the parts work, what function first,
Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
there's another dog that could be standing behind you in line. That
Yes.
could be better height, better proportions, all the things. And then when it goes, maybe it doesn't move its way out of a paper bag.
Right.
So
Right.
functional attributes are the priority.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
so that's why I always put the structure after the movement, because the movement shows you how it functions. Sometimes a dog will appear to have structure standing on the line and it won't equate to how it moves. Other
Right.
times you'll see a dog that you're like, that's not right, standing there.
Right.
And for whatever reason, the ligamentation, the musculature,
Yes. Yes.
the angles, what's going on underneath the skin and the bone and
Yes.
the tissue and the muscles functions. If it functions and it can do the job, it can do the job. So, but those are where I start: temperament, movement, and then overall structure. And then I worry about breed type. I argue with people, and even some respect. I have a friend who's actually on the Westminster panel on another breed, and we debate breed type because in some breeds, like if I were judging poodles, type is
Yes.
everything.
Yes.
If it's not
Or a
poodly,
boxer.
and it doesn't have type or carriage,
Yes.
don't look at it. In a
Yes.
German Shepherd, it's like this. I explain to people like this. So you look on the cover of Vogue and you see this waifishly thin model who by American standards is considered beautiful. Then you go and you watch the Olympics and you see Simone Biles. Short,
Yeah.
so not standard height for a woman,
Right.
muscular, mature, maybe too much.
She's jacked. She's
considered
jacked.
to be feminine and pretty,
Sure.
but her explosive strength, her athleticism, her ability to function, even while having her own beauty, feminine
Yes.
beauty, like
No, she's beautiful, I think.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's not how, say, for example, American standard defines it for a Vogue model, right? Tall, long, and lean.
Yeah.
But her functional attributes are better, and she's of reasonable type. that I would put her above it. So German
Right.
Shepherds are kind of the same way. So just because you're beautiful doesn't mean you're functional.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. I couldn't agree more. And it's again, it's form that leads to function. And if that form doesn't lead to function, it's useless. Because at
Exactly.
the end of the day, it's supposed to be a moving dog. And if it can't move, it can't win.
Pretty much.
And so thank you for clarifying that. And when you're in the ring, is there a particular trait that often you feel gets overlooked by the average spectator, but it is crucial to you as a judge for the breed?
I would say depth of muzzle, strength of underjaw, and croups. Because we already talked about how important that pelvic angle is to that breed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So why do you feel that is?
I don't think a lot of people understand it.
Right. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that subject and talk about it a little bit more. Maybe
So
we can explain it in lay terms.
people will look at a dog and they're like, "Oh, I don't like the way that function. It's dragging a toe. Why is it dragging a
Sure.
toe?
Right. Right.
What is the root cause of the problem? We have to
Right.
dial it back and figure out the root cause because going forward as a breeder, you got to either fix that or remove
Yes, sir.
that dog from your breeding program and
Yes, sir.
start with a dog that can function. But you got to know what
Yes.
correct function is.
Right. So the breed today and tomorrow, when we talk about the breed, you've judged the breed in multiple
Hang
regions.
on, the light just went off in this room.
Yeah,
That's
no
all.
worries.
Okay, it's back on.
Yeah. So you've judged the breed in multiple regions in the United States. What is your assessment of the German Shepherd dog in the United States today? And are we moving in the right direction overall as a breed?
It's very different from when I started. So when I
Sure.
started, everybody talked about half moon curve of stifle, half moon curve of stifle, and the lower
Yes.
thigh was so low without.
Yes.
So this is where we talk about you can have variation in structure and it can still work, right? There are
Right.
dogs that I remember the late 80s and 90s that were really extreme out behind themselves in the rear. And they have this deep lower thigh, but they didn't have short hocks. If you're going to have a longer lower thigh, you got to have a short hock to compensate so that you can clear, right?
Right.
Otherwise, you're going to get all kinds of aberrations. They're going to be
Yes.
doing
Yeah. Yeah.
things
Yeah.
to try to get out
They're
of their
swimming
way.
in the back. Yeah.
If you have a correct turn of stifle, then you need a correct length of hock because if you have little tiny hocks or you have ginormous hocks, you're still going to have a problem. Like
Right.
it has to balance itself out, whatever
Yes.
that is.
Yes.
And people don't understand the nuances of why is this working? Well, we used to have a lot of egg beaters in the rear. So they have narrow thighs, they didn't have broad thighs, and they had no muscling. Like if you went behind them and you felt their hams, they were non-existent kind of thing.
Right.
And my other breeds is Doberman. So like when you walk behind a Doberman, you want to see a nice backside. They have muscles. And that's
Yes.
something that I think is
And it's a short-haired breed too, so you can't really disguise it like you can with the German Shepherd.
and if they don't, they look really weak and
Right.
shepherdy, for lack of a better term.
Well, that's not good.
But in the 80s and early 90s, that's what we had a lot of. And now I
Right.
think we're a little bit more moderate in the rear in terms of angles, better functioning rears, better croups, fewer dead tails. I don't see the dragging toes, more muscling in the thigh, more breath in the thigh. So I think all of that has improved.
Right. So
And
why?
dogs,
What was the reason for that dead tail? Like I've seen that like several times, and you see that also in a lot of European dogs as well, the ones that are more exaggerated in the rear quarter or that are super long. And for the longest time, it was a joke that we used to make that everybody was when they were stacking their dogs, they would push their rear ends down to make the back look super arched for the photographs.
mm-hmm.
And now the dogs are actually like that.
Oh, that's terrible.
You don't have to push it down. It's like you're just walking and their back's going just down like that. There's no the forehand and the pelvis are not in the same plane. The planes have shifted. One's a lot higher, one's a lot lower, and then subsequently you've got these funny neck angles and the deeper chest to accommodate for all of that because the anatomy has to go somewhere as a part of the engineering of the skeleton of the dog. So where do you think that leads us to, and where do you think the American type is as far as that is concerned?
As far as top line versus pelvis,
Yes.
we have always been, I mean, some of them were, like I said, at one point, especially in the early 90s, really high withered
Yes.
in early 80s through, well, some of them in the late 70s, actually, through like the early 90s, really high withered, really straight open shoulders and
Right.
extreme top lines. Now it less so. You don't have to be extreme to be correct. Um, but we
Hmm.
never really had a big problem. It's, I mean, they exist. I see some sometimes, but we
Sure.
don't really have roach top line so much because
Yes.
over here in the States, that's heavily frowned upon.
Yes.
We those and we just sort of cringe.
Right.
That's a very German thing.
Yes. Unfortunately.
So I think
Straight backs mean different things to different people, it seems like.
we've always wanted smooth neck into shoulders all the way through the croup into the tail. And that's
Yes.
always been a big thing, right? We don't want anything to stand out
Uninterrupted.
uninterrupted. So I think we're pretty good in that department.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get short croups, a
Sure.
little bit flatter. Looks like the tail's kind of stuck on there.
Sure. 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 But that's still more functional than a rounded croup that's hindering motion in the rear end, forcing the rear not to be able to reach in and leaving a less functional dog. So, what do you think is the biggest challenge that faces the breed in America today?
There's so many challenges. It's hard to pick one. The biggest challenge, I think, how we show our dogs led a little bit to the demise of the in the temperament regard. Because
Okay.
sometimes you can't tell whether a dog is sound because we use the anxiety. We
Sure.
create anxiety to get them to go.
Sure.
And so they appear nuts when sometimes the
Sure.
dog isn't nuts, it's
Right.
man-made nuts.
Right.
I think that's a disservice.
Right. And we talk about also, the 3 point stack, the way we show our dogs. And a lot of people just automatically talk about hip problems. Of course, they've got X-ray vision. They can see the, but how does that, why is that different for the German Shepherd breed? And why is that accentuated in our breed? And how is that good or bad or indifferent to public perception?
I just don't think they understand it. Even when I mentor all breed judges, they don't understand it. And
Right.
even our diagrams and our illustrated standard, we show the feet underneath the wings of the pelvis in order to
Right.
get 90-degree shoulder and 90-degree
Yes.
rear angles, right?
Yes.
You can't
Yes.
get that in a show stack because
Sure.
that angle is going to be more open.
Absolutely.
So people don't understand it, and we need to do a better job of explaining it to them why they're built that way. And naturally, most of mine will just stand that when they're bopping about, they'll
Right.
just stand that way on their own.
Right, absolutely. Like any dog that is constructed with the right proportions usually just self stacks when it's moving around, not naturally. And that's like really hard for a lot of people to digest. They're like, oh, why is it standing like that? That's
I
just
didn't,
pause in the moment. You
I
know,
didn't make them do it; they just do it on their own.
exactly. So if you could whisper one piece of advice into the ear of an aspiring breeder or a handler, what would it be?
Breeders get multiple mentors and absorb everything you can absorb. Go to their kennels, partake in whatever it is they're doing, whether they're taking care of puppies, learning
Right.
everything from worming to vaccination to husbandry to preparing their special for the ring and conditioning.
Yes.
Absorb everything you can while you can.
Yes. And for handlers?
Handlers, oh, they don't listen. I used to be one. I know. I can say that because I used to be one. Um, Show dogs at different speeds. You
Okay.
know, sometimes they come in and they want to race. Fine. You can race as long as you want until you get tired. You're just gonna run until I
Right.
can see something. And at
Right.
some point, you want to see the dog on its own. So at some point, give me a loose lead when the dog's not just pulling and distorting and making itself look awful.
Right. And one piece of advice for judges.
Mm, depends on the judge. So true.
How about an all breed judge? That's not a native to the breed.
My pet peeve, only watching the first three steps and then turning their back on a German Shepherd. Never, ever. I don't care whether it's a German Shepherd or a Mastiff or a Great Dane. It takes a few steps for them to get in the gate.
Yeah.
So you should be watching the middle to the end more so than watching the beginning. The beginning's
Right.
never going to be good, and you're never going to see
Right.
anything. And
Right.
particularly You might see something if it's like a special and it's trained, but if it's a class dog or a puppy, the first three
Right.
steps are going to be like this. What are you going to
Right.
see? And then they're like, they're out of control. No,
Right.
you're just looking at the wrong part of it.
Right. And for a specialty judge.
Um, Probably just doing a correct temperament test because some people don't do it correctly. Sometimes I've
Oh,
seen people even like go at their face like this, which is not a good thing. Because if
no.
you wanted my face like that, I'd be like, get away from
Yeah.
me.
Well, also the standard describes the dog as aloof, not friendly.
Hmm.
And it's not a golden retriever. A lot of people, I think, have a hard time wrapping their minds around that. They want the dog to be waggy and approachable and say, "Hey, how's it going?" When the breed standard does not describe the dog like that at all.
And it's always better to come underneath or from the side than to go
Yeah,
over the top like this. No one
right.
wants
Like
to be
everyone
slapped on
wants to,
top of the head.
right? Exactly.
I tell it to everybody, like, can you just go from the side? Why are you doing this on?
Right. Or this, like they're trying to.
Yes,
Yeah.
punch him in the jaw.
So without giving away the sauce, what kind of dogs do you hope to see rise to the top of the breed?
Mm, Probably something like we've never seen before. With no, I mean,
I'm
we
just
have a
saying
lot.
Westminster in particular. I'm just saying like in the top on the what would you like to see in an ideal scenario on the top of the breed?
Something beautiful that was a spectacular mover. But the
Right.
problem is at that show, even if you had a spectacular mover, you can't see it because I'm a big advocate of showing German Shepherds on a natural surface. And I
Right.
realize it's New York City in February. There's no such thing as a natural surface because it's
Nope.
all snow and ice and mush and slush.
Yep.
So that's not possible and it's cold.
Right.
So we have to be indoors. But they usually, when they're shown indoors, they shorten up in front and they
Yep.
don't get propulsion because they don't have the traction. So
Right.
you're not really getting a true and accurate depiction of what that dog is
Yes.
capable of.
Yes.
But hopefully, something, if they can look good on that surface, then outside they're going to be exceptional. So something
Right.
that looks good on that surface.
Very cool. So is there a particular feeling that you want the crowd to walk away with after they see you judge?
Mm, that man loves his breed.
And for the general public watching the Westminster, what do you wish they understood about our breed that doesn't always come across through the broadcast or through our dog shows?
Oh, the general public, every German Shepherd is not a black and tan. They come in a plethora of colors.
Right.
You know, it's perfectly okay whether it's a black, a bicolor, a sable, black and
Yeah.
red. I don't care. They're all equal. Most important that they have good temperament and good structure. Who cares about color?
Right. Well, funny you say that. There's a bit of a debate going about color right now, and there's people trying to breed off breed colors, whether
Oh,
there's livers, pandas, blues, and trying to pawn them off as rare dogs. What can you please just go into just a little bit, just a sidebar of how distracting that can be to the overall quality of dogs and to the breed, how destructive that is to the breed.
well, it's very destructive. So I think it was 2000, 2003, 2010. I don't remember. Sometime in the
Sure.
2000s, I did the White German Shepherd National. And
Okay.
so
Oh, I didn't even know that existed. Oh my God.
uh-huh. They have a whole they like UKC shows and stuff.
Gotcha. Oh,
And
gotcha.
very,
Okay.
very nice group of folks, but they've been
Sure.
apart so long. There's a little bit of divergence, like confirmation how they look and stuff. And then there are
Sure.
other breeds that actually were developed out of German Shepherds, basically like Shiloh Shepherds and the Swiss
Sure.
Blanc. They go
Yeah. Yeah.
back, and so they look like, but they're different,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
proportions and substance and stuff.
Like the raised rears and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the longer you're away, you're gonna get divergence and
Yes.
variation in structure. I will,
Absolutely.
I will say that in a lot of breeds, not just ours, white. So, for example, I do corgis and they Pembrokes. If they have a certain amount of white, is considered a mismark, and they heavily
Sure.
penalize that because they don't want too much white because white in a lot of breeds can lead to blindness, deafness,
Yes.
excessive
Yes.
white. Or like in a Dalmatian, they always say if there's black on the ear, then that dog can they hearing test them anyway, but that dog can hear.
Sure.
If there's no
Yes.
black, odds are that dog is going to have a higher chance of being deaf. So
Sure.
excessive white in many breeds and the lack of pigment and stuff, and they sunburn
Dilute pigments. Yes.
relates to health issues, and that's why
Right.
there's a push against it and
Right.
adding all these strange colors, or even like livers that have the light, or blues that have the light eyes that are sensitive to
Yes.
sunlight. Like it
Yes.
just is a cascade of health problems that we don't want.
Yes. Absolutely. And also they have a very restricted gene pool because there's not very many
Mhm.
dogs in those lines, and that as a consequence would automatically bring up deep-seated problems up to the surface, as with any inbreeding when you're not when you especially when you don't know what you're doing. And chances are, if
Absolutely.
you're breeding for color, you don't know what you're doing. Otherwise, you wouldn't be breeding for color. You'd be breeding for health, type, temperament. So, mentors and milestones. Let's get back into the initial subject that we when we started. And tell me some anecdotal stories if you can. Just sprinkle them here and there if you can. What was the first figure who changed everything for you? Was there someone in those early years who quite literally changed the trajectory of your life with dogs? Tell us
Ooh.
a story of how you met them and what stood out the way they did the breed, why you gravitated towards them, why were you attracted to what they were doing that you wanted to emulate.
Um, I would just say, we run a lot of people away from dog shows, AKC dog shows, because of how we treat them.
Sure.
So I
I think
try to
it's
be
everywhere. It's ubiquitous.
I try to be cognizant of the fact of new people. It's sort of like I was talking about me and my pet case on. If somebody would have been mean to me, I probably would have
Yes.
turned away. But
Yes, sir.
people cared enough to try to help me that I felt like I was part of something and I stuck with it. And there was a couple of the Eaglesons in southern Indiana where the lady, I mean, so they had a house out in the country and they had a house in town and they had greenhouse. And so the greenhouse was like connected to their home in the city. And they would work there and they would make flower arrangements and people would come by, plants at the greenhouse, whatever. And they had a mom that had really bad Parkinson's and she had in-home nursing care. And then the lady would come over and feed her at lunchtime. And so I kind of took care of the dogs because she was occupied with all the other things. And like she would have a litter in the house and I'd let them out and I helped take care of the puppies, and sometimes I sleep over there, and then there'd be like this. There's these two male working dogs, the ones I used to work with the Shih Tzu and the trekking stuff, and
Right.
it'd be cold downstairs, and there'd be this 90-pound German Shepherd sleeping on me, breathing in my ear, kind of thing. And so those kind of things just make you stick with it and make you
Yes.
appreciate how
Yes.
the everything works.
Always the little things, how the people make you feel a sense of belonging to something bigger than yourself. It's always those little things. And it's been exactly the same for me when I was growing up with the breed. So, contrary to that, can you describe the first time a mentor told you something about dogs or breeding or the sport in general that completely contradicted to what you thought you knew?
Well, that happened a lot in the 80s.
Okay.
Everybody, there were a lot of German Shepherd people, and everybody was an expert depending on, experience level, success,
Right.
whatever. And so what you heard the most back then was uh it's okay if they're not clean going away. So soundness was a
Okay.
thing, not a thing, right? And there was
Sure.
a lot of toe dragging, egg beater, overangulated, cripple dogs,
Right.
a lot of cavalier disregard for that.
Wow. Okay. And how did you react to that in the moment? And how did that challenge help you grow?
I didn't know any better.
Right.
So I didn't know better until I remember, what was it, like the 92 Louisville Kennel Club show. It's like the 92. I was like at the Kentuckiana specialty or something. And I think Mystique was there. And I mean, when I tell you this bitch was squeaky clean on the down and back, I'd never seen anything like that before in my life. And I'm like, they were
Wow.
wrong. It's possible. Now I know it's possible. It may not be get with the dogs that are being bred now, but I know that it's possible.
That's amazing. So let's go to the dog that taught you more than people. Sometimes a dog becomes your greatest teacher, right? Whether it could be your dog or a dog you watched, just like Mystique you mentioned right now. Was there a dog that stands out, yours or somebody else's, just in the breed, that made you stop, reassess, and rethink everything in the breed, not just the rears and the movement?
So my first show shepherd that I got from Karen Heineck, I learned a lot from him
Okay.
because every dog has their peculiarities. And he had his peculiarities. And so when you're training, you have to vary the methods to get pull
Sure.
out what you want out of each animal.
Sure. Sure.
And
Sure.
a handler or a trainer that can adapt is not going to be successful.
Right. So tell us something about a dog that you lost with in the ring that you thought was phenomenal or was the best one out there. And what did you learn from that experience? And like a dog that you thought should have been more successful than it actually was. What did that experience teach you, and how did that shape you as you now judge?
So in the 80s and 90s, a lot of the old guard and some of them that were still judging, in the 2000s, um, a lot of us, like Sherry's had them. Sherry just
Yeah.
put a long coat select at the national. I've had coats. We always kept them for breeding, but we never showed them, around the world, like you guys have them in performance and the Canadians will
Yes, sir.
show them in conformation and finish them. We didn't do that in the States because they got
Sure.
discriminated against. And
Sure.
so, yes, it can have excessive length. It's a fault. It's not a serious fault. It's not like you're missing a molar or something.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
as long as the texture is reasonably good and you
Yes.
have a double coat and you don't lack the
Yes.
undercoat, then
Yes.
it's just a fault.
Right.
But until I don't know if you know Anya Dalbert, she died in an auto accident, like on her way home from a dog show. But
Oh, yes, yes. I'm aware of who she is. Yes.
she had a bitch. It was a long coat that she started showing, and so I have a breeding partner. And we had a coated bitch, and she's like, "I want to show her." I'm like, "I don't think you can handle this emotionally. There will be
Right.
people that will put her down because she has hair, even if she's better than the dog she's going against.
Right.
And I don't know if you can handle that getting beat up all the time,
Reduction.
even when you know you should probably win." And so
Yes.
I always went into it expecting that. And if
Right.
anything good came out of it, I was like, okay, that's great. But she as a dog was like the best PR dog for the breed ever. So there, a friend of mine in Nevada, he's like 18, 19 now. He's an adult, but he was a little
Wow.
kid
Yeah.
at the time.
Yes.
And she would go to the dog show and where I look at where my bitch is, she's rolled over on her back with this kid mauling her, climbing on top of her. Or like we have a bench show called, or we used to, in San Francisco called the Golden Gate Kennel Club. And so we would sit on the bench all day and people would ask us dumb questions like, how much does your dog weigh? Blah, 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 blah,
Oh my God. I hated that every time I was asked that question. Yes.
blah. Or what breed is it?
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, there's Google. Anyway, so you're nice because you want to encourage people, right? And so you answer all the questions. And I may or may not have consumed a little bit of Bailey's to get through that. And so she would literally be out there and like went back and forth from person to person all day long. There's
Yes.
a kid that came up and had a disability in a wheelchair, and she had never seen a wheelchair before. So when you show a
Right.
German Shepherd a new thing and they're adult, they're like, "What?" This is the dog is really happy, kind of bouncing off the walls, would jump off of you, and
Or,
you're like, "Oh God, she's gonna hurt this kid." I mean, the most gentle, just walked up to it
oh, that's
and
beautiful.
just put her head in his lap, and she knew
Oh,
something was up, and I was like, "Who are you?" But
that's awesome.
I think one of the common misconceptions about a German Shepherd is unless you live with them and you know them,
Yes.
intuition. So the part in the standard that talks about character and willing to accept overtures without making overtures and blah blah blah
Yes.
blah. A
Yes.
lot of people and a lot of other breeds they don't understand it unless they've ever had one because they're like they're not brave. I saw one back away from a judge, blah 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 in the show ring. I'm like,
Sure.
so we had a dog who was like kind of dumb. And German Shepherd shouldn't be dumb, but I'll admit it, he's kind of
Right.
dumb
Sure.
and kind of golden retriever-ish. But
Okay.
I'd rather have that around kids than something that bite
Right.
people.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
we were at a dog show and we were in a hotel and my breeding partner, they're out in the van, she's feeding the dogs in their crates.
Mm-hmm.
And someone walks up probably like 20 feet behind her in the parking lot. So she hears the dog start to grumble. And he doesn't do that because he's like,
Mm-hmm.
people, la 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 la. So next thing she know, he's grabbing a wire crate door and pulling it in because he's coming out.
Right.
And
Wow.
she's like, I turned around. Some guy was like 8 or 10 feet behind me. She's like, I'm gonna open the crate door.
Yeah.
Gone.
That's perfect.
But you didn't see the bravery until you needed to see it. He never
Absolutely.
showed us that before at
The
all,
dog can determine the situation.
but it was
Absolutely.
always there. And I was like, wow,
Yeah.
I'm impressed. You're not stupid after all.
Well, like they say, there's only German Shepherds, and then all the other dogs want to be German Shepherds.
And he was a son of the bitch that long coated bitch that I'm talking about. Like
Right.
great PR dog. I mean, she had her
Yes.
conformational holes, right? I knew she
Sure.
was perfect, but For
Which
me,
dog is?
just
Yeah.
as a public relations dog for the breed, she was perfect.
Yes. I think we definitely need a lot more of those. Also, it's really interesting because in the AKC, you can breed long coats to stock coats without any issues. So the papers don't even, our pedigrees don't even mention the coat variety. But
Mhm.
in the German SV, how they've set it up is the long coat is a separate registry, the long stock coat, and the stock coat is a separate registry, which in my personal opinion, whatever that's worth, uh, it's a giant disservice to the breed because you're separating the two populations. And of
I
course, the
agree.
stock coats carry the gene. That's why you're producing long coats. And the long coats are a recessive gene, so they can't produce stock coats when bred to each other. So you're essentially crippling a population in the long run and trying to make it extinct. But you can't because you're the dogs you prefer to come in higher places, you want them to have profuse coats and you want them to have thick, beautiful coats. So of course they carry the long stock coat gene. That's why they're producing those coats. Because the ones that don't carry that coat, they're very short coated. They have very little undercoat. Exactly. So it's a catch 22 and it's a conundrum, which I think is completely artificially created, which doesn't need to be there.
I
And
agree with
this
you.
false barrier is hurting the breed a lot more than it's doing any favors. And there's no scientific reason. It was just because somebody thought it was fit over pseudoscience why it should be done. And so it was implemented, and now, they're guarding it like it's a line in the stone. But,
I think
whatever.
that's a mistake. That's almost as a mistake,
Absolutely.
like those top lines strengthened in the back kind of thing.
Yep,
Um,
exactly.
there's a place for them. I say this a lot. So the judge and exhibitor in me is like, oh, you want the perfect dog that meet the standard and
Yeah.
blah 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 blah.
Right,
But
right,
the
right.
breeder in me realizes that sometimes there's a dog that's an outlier that
Yes,
maybe have a little bit more head than what you would want, but maybe you have a
yes.
dog that lacks depth of muzzle and underjaw, and you need to breed to a dog like that.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Or maybe, this dog, you're like, oh, that dog's almost too short coupled. And a lot of
Right.
dogs in that bloodline are kind of bunched up this way. But I have this excessive length that I've been breeding for three
Exactly.
generations and I can't get rid of it. So it's like sometimes you
Exactly.
need that dog, this
You
tightly
need a
lined up.
short couple dog for your slinky to balance them.
Exactly.
Yes.
Don't throw them
100%.
out because you may need them to use them in your breeding program at some point. And
100%. I think it's very short-sighted.
coats are the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. So was there ever a moment, how do I word it? Was there a phrase, or a piece of advice that a mentor gave you that echoes in your mind every time you step into the ring or when you're breeding? Like some good life advice that's just stuck with you.
Yes, and I stole it and I make it my tagline. When a German Shepherd starts gating, either all the
Right.
stars will align or they will fall from the sky.
Oh,
That's
that's a good one.
that is everything you need to know.
Yeah.
After they take that first few steps, it's either like, holy Jesus, or it's like, oh, you poor thing. Pretty much sums it up.
That's a really good one. Yes. And was there ever a moment that a mentor let you fail so miserably and you're grateful that they did because now you can make your own experience? So could you tell me what happened and how did that event shape your eye and your ethic?
Not in confirmation, but the first time I participated in obedience, my friend that had the
Sure.
greenhouses that I used to help with their litters and stuff,
Hmm.
they had they entered just for me, and I'd never competed in obedience before. They entered this open coat dog that they had, and it was the most embarrassing experience of my life because when you do performance, you train this
Yes.
dog, you train with the dog, and
Yes.
all the mistakes you want to be on the dog. The dog decided to do something, went rogue, but the
Right.
handler shouldn't make mistakes and screw the dog up. I
Yep.
made every mistake I possibly could. And that was my last 4 year in jail obedience.
That's funny. So inside the old school, you've come up through a generation that has still had a deep connection with old school greats. Can you paint a picture to us of what those early dog show days were like? Like you started in '86, I was born in '84, you know?
Oh
So
my
the
God. I'm
so,
old.
yeah, you look wonderful, by the way. So the personalities, the dogs, the energies. Could you, talk a little bit about that?
Well, once again, it comes back to sometimes we overdouble our dogs to destroy them. So sometimes you can't tell. You can't tell
Sure.
whether that dog is anxious or high drive or whether
Right.
someone's trying to create that to get them to
Right.
be
Right.
animated.
Right.
So that's a disservice.
Right. So, can you tell me some stories from like some lore from the old times, from the generation that was beyond yours or previous to yours?
Well, just, you know, Sherry and I have this discussion too. It's like if you, there are some judges, especially on individual examinations and temperament tests and stuff, they have to make a big bravado and make an example of it. When you walk up to a dog, you don't have to go through all those rigors. You could
Right.
look them in the eye, look at their body language.
Yeah.
Maybe it tucks his tail, is quivering the thigh, or it tenses up, and don't embarrass the handler, don't
Yeah.
embarrass the breeder or the judge. Just judge the dog, and you might not use them that day because they may not be exhibiting the best character. But you can
Right.
a true German Shepherd person can pick up on all the nuances. I
Yes.
find that people that don't come from the breed can't necessarily pick up on the nuances. And my
Sure.
father was one of those because he had Labradors, so happy-go-lucky
Sure.
all the time.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
he didn't understand when we were going to a dog show, the dog jumped up in the back seat of the car and he was shutting the door and it just hit the dog's tail on the way in, while the dog hated him ever since. And he didn't
Right.
start over and establish a relationship and have some
Right.
positive experiences so the dog
Right.
liked him. He didn't
Right.
understand you had to earn his respect and
Right.
admiration and have a collegial cooperative relationship with him.
Yes.
Thought it was going to give you unconditional love. No, 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 no.
Right.
That's not
Yeah.
how this
No. No.
works.
That's not how it works. Absolutely. And do you remember the first time you saw a truly world-class shepherd in person? Because it's always like that one dog you see, and I'm like, oh my God, this is it. And then you're tuned to that.
Define world class.
Like, like a dog that just, knocked your socks off for the very first time. And you're like, this
Mm,
is it. This is what I want to do. And this is what I want to have.
I don't remember actually. I've seen a lot of good ones.
Sure, sure.
So
So
I
it's
can't.
like, you can't picture what it looked like, how it moved, and how that moment burned into your memory. Like, all right, this is what I want to do. I want to have a dog just like this one. Wow, they
Well,
make them like this?
I can't remember a specific dog. I just
Right.
remember some specialties in the early 90s and some dogs just gating against each other, stroking down the long side. And I was like, oh, I need that. I want that. I want to do that.
Right. And coming to, crossroads and contrasts, have your mentors always agreed with you on the ideal German Shepherd? And
No.
how did navigating, simple answer. So let me expand upon that. So how did navigating different philosophies help you form your own compass?
So here's the deal. And it's not just mentors, even the judges and stuff that I talk to now that I mentor. So
Sure.
my philosophy is this: I may not agree with you.
Yeah.
It's if there are 10 dogs in a class, that our top four are the same. The order may be a little bit different. When you get the better ones to the front, you may put a little more emphasis on that or this, depending on
Sure.
how you interpret the standard and
Sure.
apply it. But in
Sure.
general, you should always be able to see the better ones.
Right.
And so if someone doesn't agree with me 100%, I'm perfectly okay with that. Like I have a friend, she's one of my working mentors, and sometimes her winners is my reserve and my reserve is her winners, but this basically the same dogs are in the front. Who cares
Right.
whether
Right. The
how you
top third of dogs is always the same.
yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
you can find the better ones. That's all I care about.
Absolutely. And as you developed your own style, was there ever a point of friction between you and what you were taught and what you came to believe through your experience?
Yes. And the biggest thing we were talking about those egg beating toe dragging
Yes.
breeders where it used
Yes.
to be an acceptable thing and people would
Right.
make excuses for it and well they just don't understand in all breeds. They can't expect us to be that clean. Blah 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 blah.
Right. So coming to full circle, how have you found yourself now saying something to a younger judge or somebody you mentor or a handler and thought, wow, that sounds like something that my old mentor would say to me, that you're now echoing into the next generation?
Yeah, because in the 80s and early 90s, we didn't care so much about breed type. It was side gate, side gate, side gate, side gate. And a lot of the old guard, that was where their emphasis was. And now the shift has changed to the best package, right?
Right.
So there are times I've had judges come up to me ringside, they'll be watching them like, so what do you think? Or what would you have done? Or they're judging and they'll ask me, do you think I did the right thing? And I'm like, here's the thing. I'm not ever going to tell you that you're wrong. I'm just going to ask you what, how you interpret the standard at that moment and how you applied it, right?
Yes.
And so they're like, well, this one's a little bit better mover, that one's a little bit better package. So it depends on where you put the emphasis, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Most German Shepherd people are never going to fault you for picking the best mover. If
Yeah,
you pick this one, maybe it's a little bit shorter in front, but it's still nice coupling and beautiful headpiece and nice proportions and beautiful type and
it
stuff. So it's
comes
like,
together.
I get it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
now the emphasis has shifted to the best package, I think, for most of us,
got it.
especially since the merging of the specialty world and the Albury world is now a thing.
So the specialty and the all breed are not so far removed, so we're actually getting sounder dogs and not more exaggerated dogs that would, feature in the specialties earlier on.
Correct.
So yeah, and I've noticed this trend. So in the FCI shows, when you see, because I grew up with FCI all breed shows, and it was like an aberration to me when I saw like an AKC specialty for the first time when I went to college, and I wanted to go check out the local specialty in the Simi Valley. And I'm like, whoa, this is a different look and feel altogether. How the dogs look, how they're judged. So I was more from the world of the FCI all breed shows and then the SV specialty shows. And you'll see dogs like a slight different in type. Let's say in the FCI shows, dogs with choppier fronts, bigger dogs, more like more red and black, more flashy dogs, like flashier dogs with more hair, and they were just ready to go, just grunting to go at the leash, like you said, you're making them anxious, or if they are anxious, because the judge is only looking at the first half as the dog starts trotting, doesn't look when it goes behind the back. So you'll see a lot of short stepping dogs that could cover that look like they could cover ground in the front half. You'd see them win with the super high withers and stuff. And as opposed to the specialty shows where the dogs are made to walk a long time. For 20 minutes, the dogs are, just walking on the lead. Those dogs would fall apart after, a couple of rounds because they literally can't sustain themselves with that choppy movement over an extended period of time because there's only one fast gate at the end. Most of the time, you're just walking and the judge is trying to, essentially see the endurance and trying to pick at the normal gait how the dog is moving without any exaggerations or aberrations in the movement. So I saw that difference, but I guess the difference in the AKC ring was a lot starker with the rears as far as the specialty shows what was accepted and the Albury shows what was being put up.
Big
I
difference.
got you. I got you.
Especially back then, there was a huge difference between the type of dogs. You'd have two strings of dogs. Some you would take
Right.
to only the specialties, and some that you would show it.
Gotcha.
Now, I mean, you tried to breed a dog that could do both.
Right, right. No, that's wonderful. And when you're judging a show, whether it's a Westminster or any show, do you carry any of your mentors with you, metaphorically, of course, into the ring? Is there someone in particular whose presence you feel when the pressure is on?
Uh, Not in my own breed. I'm pretty comfortable
Okay,
in my skin and German Shepherds. In other breeds,
sure.
yes. When I do other breeds,
So,
yes. Like
so tell me
for
a little bit
example,
about that.
like boxers. I had a
Okay.
boxer experience that in the ring wasn't the greatest once. And I just remember my mentor. There's this dog, big dog, nice mover. And I remember my mentor in the back of my head saying, "Don't ever put up a boxer with an ugly head." And I just couldn't do it. And it had a head like a bulldog. And I was like, "That's not
Right,
correct."
right. It's 40%, right? Is the head. Is it's the head breed.
Yeah, I
So
couldn't do it.
that's good. So looking at the legacy and the final
Lights are
thoughts,
out
there
again.
goes
Oh,
the
there they
light
go.
again. It's back on. So looking back at your journey, at your legacy from your first German Shepherd, from the Labradors that you trained as a kid, to the green carpet at the Madison Square Garden, what do you hope to contribute to the breed when it's all said and done?
When at Madison Square Garden
No, no,
or
no. I'm saying from your starting point, you've come all the way to MSG, right? And when you hang up, your gloves, the proverbial gloves, what would you hope to have contributed to the breed?
the reason I encourage Sherry to finish the herding group, the reason why I finished the herding group and I'm going to start finishing on the working group is that the way dog shows are going and the entries and specialties are dwindling and it's an aging workforce, in order
Yes,
to survive, those clubs are going to have to go in with specialty clusters. And a
yes.
lot of times they force us to pick in my own club in the Bay Area, as a matter of fact, they force
Sure.
us to pick off the judges panel. So you don't get a breeder judge And
Sure.
so, in order to get a breeder judge, you have to have somebody who can do a group like a Sherry or a Bonnie Money or somebody that they
Got
will
it.
pay for because they don't want to pay for somebody to travel for flights and hotels that can only do one breed.
I
So
got you.
I think that's where I can do my breed of service. I saw it going that direction about a decade ago, and I was like, I need to do this for them because otherwise they won't have breeder judges judging specialties anymore.
Right. So also for the preservation of genetics, let's say to expand the horizons of the breed, what do you think of integration with the European dogs into the American dogs?
I think there's a place for it. I mean,
Okay.
I have some that are hybrids, not because I did those breedings, because I'm
Sure.
reticent to do those breedings, because breeding to something that you know nothing about, you could be bringing a
Right.
whole host of problems and not knowing how to manage them.
Right. Right.
You
Right.
you don't know where the bodies are buried. And
Yes.
so,
That's a good way to
um,
say it. Yes.
but some of my breeding partners, they do it and they've done it
Yes.
successfully. And we have dogs that are hybrids.
Right. And do you think, actually, let me ask you, where has that you feel made the biggest difference, so to speak, in those breedings?
Types and heads, really. Type
Okay. And
heads, color.
where do you think it's hurt you?
Mm, what I will say that is shocking to me? I would say probably side gate, overall extension, and rears
Hmm.
specifically.
Okay. So lack of rear thrust.
Not the thrust, more on the follow through end.
Okay. Okay. I got you. Okay. And finally, for someone who's listening to this, who's just entered with their first puppy, let's say at a local club match or something, or just starting out with their first dog and, looking at the Westminster on television or on the internet, whatever, what would you say to them?
Get a show dog. Come join us. Be a part of our cult.
I love it. I love it. Well,
It's an addiction.
it was an absolute pleasure, Mr. Sheets, and I hope we can do this again sometime. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
All right. Have a good, well, the holiday's over. Have a good weekend because it's a Friday.
Thanks very much, and a happy new year to you.
Happy New Year.
Take care.